There are 3 things that will seriously hurt or harm your bonsai in March, late winter, if you forget them. And you know what? This is something I nearly always forget. One of them is going right round now. You can see it swirling about me. The other has absolutely nothing to do with this. If you want to find out what those 3 things are and how to avoid them, plus get some great subscriber photographs and to see some incredible flowering blooms from our Fuji cherry, our dwarf azalea, and a few other varieties, then I think this is the episode you've got to stop in and watch. It won't be long, but then I always say that, don't I? Hiya, it's Xavier and welcome to my bonsai retreat. And do you know what? This is a little Tuesday special. It won't take long, but there's 3 things, 3 very important things that if you don't get right, you will seriously hurt your bonsai.
Quit being so dramatic.
And there's 3 other things that we regularly think we need to do, which actually we can forget. We can do them another year. So the number 1 thing I'm going to talk about, it's simple, water complacency. Do you know what? In the UK, we have pretty wet, cold winters. And if I'm honest, I've had to water 3 times, probably in the last 2.5, nearly 3 months. We get complacent. I look up in the weather, it's cloudy, it's cold. It rained a couple of days ago. But you know what? There's a big problem with that. And as you see now, we have got some high winds, some gales blowing. What do they do to the soil, I wonder? Well, simply, if you don't check it, you'll find that with all this free draining mix we've got, it dries out pretty quickly. So gotta watch out. Check your bonsai daily, especially now as we're approaching the spring. And that especially includes our marmays. I mean, I've got this lovely marmay Chinese elm in a beautiful pot, and the last thing I want is to be losing out because I forgot that it's only a small pot. Just a little bit of wind can dry these things right out. It's got no resistance. If I then don't water it for another day, I could kill those roots. The first I'd know about it is in 4 or 5 weeks' time, when I don't get the budding that I expected or wanted. Now thankfully I've got an absolutely massive indicator of the biggest problem that we get regarding water and soils drying out. I can watch my greenhouse because all the panels have pretty well been blown out by the heavy winds we've got. I've got the door positioned just here by the side wall. The plastic wrapping is coming down, and you know what? All the trees though, if I look in here, it's probably the other thing, if you've got them in a greenhouse or a cold frame, you definitely need to keep looking out water. I noticed this olive is actually drying out. Easy to forget. We see the wind, we see the rain, and we think, I've got time. Well, the last thing you want to find out is that the time you thought you had, you haven't, and your much prized bonsai have died. So the wind can be an absolute nightmare, and the wind will definitely cause an onset to dryness and problems with moisture in the soil. But equally, we've got to watch out for being too much in our patterns, i.e. we water every single day. Things like these junipers, our white pines, they actually don't want to be covered and soggy in water. So as well as getting it wrong for letting them dry out, we can also get it wrong for overwatering. You've got to put your fingers in the soil. You've got to have a look, is there moisture in there to keep this growth going? It's a big question, and there's no easy answer. It depends entirely on your microclimate. But the one thing I'd recommend, play it safe. It doesn't hurt to come out every day, have a little look around, check the bottoms, make sure there's no slugs, but just check that surface soil and go a little bit further down and just see where it actually starts getting a little bit moist and damp. We like that. So water, because no water or wind drying stuff out will harm, hurt, or actually kill your bonsai. Conversely, forgetting to repot your bonsai 1 year, 2 years, And in some cases, for some of the trees I had in the early days, 10 years will have absolutely no detrimental effect. It may slow them down, it may stop them growing, but unless they're sick or have a root problem, you generally find you can get away with it. So my big top one recommendation, get out here in March, in early April, check, make sure that soil hasn't dried out or indeed hasn't got too damp. Now, before we get on to number 2, I thought it would be an absolute treat to have a little look at some of the beautiful flowering bonsai I've got right now in the garden, because you know in late winter, things like the Fuji cherry, the dwarf azalea, the forsythia start showing their true colours and their true beauty. And what don't you love about the Fuji cherry, the Kojo Nai Mai, whatever? It's absolutely glorious. These lovely pink, white flowers. The bumblebees love them. I've got loads in my garden. So I tell you what, let's do a little tour and a feast of these. And I'll give you a little update on what's going to happen to some of them through 2026. This first one, it started off life as a 3-foot shrub, which I took air layers off, reduced it to the foot that it is now, and it's been in this pot for a good few years. Look at all the flowers, and I'm just developing really the tertiary ramification on this. It can take a little bit of time with the Fuji cherry, and some years I've cut all the flowers off early. This year I just want to enjoy all these blooms. And again, this was a nursery plant. Yeah, it was a 3-foot shrub. Yes, I took loads of air layers, and I'll say this about Fuji cherry, they air layer so easily, and also cuttings pretty easy as well. In fact, there's only 2 things I really need to do with this today. Probably cut that one back to there, cut that one back to there. I think that will do for now. This one of the air layers off the one you've just seen, developing well. Again, we probably just want to pull some of these branches back, get rid of some of the flowers in the crotches and areas, clean it up like that. But mainly, rest of the blooms I'm quite happy to leave on. And got this lovely bit here. I've got to decide whether I actually want to take it upwards. Look at that, absolutely beautiful flowers, beautiful. Don't know. Could probably just cut it just there. That, I remove all the blooms and poke it into some soil, and that will make a great cutting right this time of the year. Now this one, again, for many of you who know my channel, know that I've got a nursery plant to bonsai series running on a number of different species, Fuji cherry being one of them. If you go back to the original one of this, and I think there's now 3 videos about this, it started off again as, I don't know, 2-foot, great big shrub, which I hacked back to just 1 foot, these trunks. These branches have been growing over the last year or 2, and last year you will know that I actually wired them all out. So the wire's been on these probably 6-7 months, and not biting in, so I'm quite happy to let the wire stay as it is. Continue to let these thicken. Again, basic principles. Those branches, which are going to be you've got the trunk, the primaries, so these need to probably thicken at least another couple of millimeters, and then we'll start trying to grow the tertiary ramification there. But what's not to love about that? We've got this one, and this was another cutting. It's probably about 5 years old, big chop here. And with this one, what I want to do is follow the approach that Derek did in his book. In fact, look, there's the link for the book. Really great value. You can get it in e format or indeed in paperback. And I've seen there's been quite a few good reviews of it now. But he does one where he's trying to make a weeping Fuji cherry. And I thought this is set up for that perfectly. So I've just got to wire these down. Again, this one's going to be subject to a bit of a Fuji time lapse, so you probably won't see it for another couple of years. And in fact, just to prove I wasn't lying about taking Derek's advice, I already applied some wire onto this one, which is, as many of you again will know, I love doing my root over rock. I've got about 8 or 9 on the go. Again, there's going to be a fantastic time lapse coming up very shortly about one that's now 4 or 5 years through. Looks pretty good. This one, Fuji cherry, put it on a rock, and it's really gripping well. It's going to stand here a bit longer. I found the roots take a lot longer to sort of thicken out and grow because you don't get the same amount of growth on top feeding them. So this, I think, is going to be absolutely wonderful. We don't need this one down the bottom here. And again, just checking to make sure the wire isn't biting in. And then we've got these dwarf azaleas. I've got 3 or 4 of them. Picked them up for a couple of pounds 5 or 6 years ago, probably longer. And just slowly trying to create bonsai out of them. To be fair, many of you know with the azaleas, I have been struggling trying to keep them going. And just trying to get, I think, the pH levels right in these. But got some lovely purple flowers on them. And if I can just sort out the overly yellowing leaves, I think I'll hit it with these. Could be because they're just too damp. That soil's pretty wet. And this dwarf azalea, really love the way this is going. It may actually even be a Satsuki azalea. Certainly the buds will open up later, so we'll get later flowers. And many of you know this, the flowers for the Satsuki don't normally come until the June time. But lovely Dawn Isaac pot. Just got to change the front actually, or wire this out. But it's got lovely big buds. There's probably about 20 bud heads on this for flowers. So I'd imagine another couple of weeks we'll have loads of flowers on it. And that's what I love about the different azaleas. They all flower at different times of the year. And this forsythia again, it featured in probably my 2nd or 3rd video on the channel, where I was doing some sort of I had some sort of a silly idea of doing a fashion show with bonsai, and this one had another branch up here. So slowly it has been losing branches, but it gets such beautiful yellow blooms, and haven't opened up yet. They're a bit late actually at the moment, but this one again, it was a nursery centre cast off. Probably paid £1 for it, and it really has given me a lot of enjoyment when I come out, see those beautiful yellow blooms just outside the kitchen door. And then we've got this this Japanese quince, beautiful cream flowers. Got a number of them still waiting to open up. They normally open up in the sort of January time, but it's been a bit later this year. This has got a bit of development still to do. In fact, it's got a long way to go, to be fair. But again, you can't beat having those flowers coming up. So we've gone through all the beautiful blooms. Let's go and find out what this this second important thing is all about. Point number 2, the big thing that will seriously hurt or harm your bonsai if you don't get on top of it quickly and early. It's got to be obvious. I've got the stuff here, I've got the maple here, and these lovely red blooms are opening up, and all I can see, hosting, feeding, sucking out the lifeblood, are the aphids. Last year it was pretty light, didn't really have any. This year, well, I think you'll see here, every single new life-giving bud is having its life sucked out of it. So really, you've got to get out there, my Jadam soap, my Jadam sulfur, and some water, and I need to be spraying everything where the buds are coming out and opening up. And I must be honest, the ones I concentrate on right now are definitely the Japanese maple. But again, like checking the soil for the water to see if it's drying out, same thing. Spend the time, have a look at those little horrible black critters that really will destroy your tree. Well, it's something that Gary Brown recommended to me last year in a brilliant video, and he made up himself this Jadam Solutions, which is all very organic, and well, I'll tell you what, have a look online for Jadam and you'll see exactly what it is. But I've got to mix this up, and I'm also using the sulfur as well with it, which gives extra insecticide punch, so to speak. So yeah, you can use soap and water and a bit of oil, or you can use many of the stuff you can get commercially. This year I'm going to go with what Gary Brown's brought to me. So should we see how I mix it up then? And the ratio is pretty simple, he says, looking at his notes. If you're mixing up a litre container, it's 2 ml of the Jadam sulfur and 20 ml of the Jadam soap. Mix them all together, whack them into a 1 litre bottle of water, Whether you use fresh rainwater or tap water is up to you entirely. For me, I've got one of these big pumper ones. I can have 5 litres. So in that case, it makes it a lot easier for me. Oh, don't drink it and this stuff stinks. I'll put 10 millilitres of sulphur. And just to say, always worth making sure you've got probably half of the water you're going to use already in there, so it's already mixing into a solution. And then 100 of the jadam. I'm now going to top that up to the 5 litre, and then you're going to see me spraying. That'll be exciting. 5 litres in there. Give it a good swirl and mix. Oh, good pump up. Check it sprays. Take your safety carry straps and go around the garden, spraying as I go. Just give them a good soaking. Best time to be doing this, first thing in the morning or later in the evening. So I've just got to go and do the rest of the 800 trees in my garden. Now it may get a bit boring, and yeah, if you get the wind wrong, you're going to get some of that stuff in your eyes. And if you're using the jadam sulphur as well, I can smell, it really can. But it's important. It's going to keep your bonsai healthy, thriving, and hopefully putting on all that extra growth that you need for the ramification for late May when we do some pruning. I waved this in the air at the beginning and said it had nothing to do with that. Well, I'm going to say, if you don't hit your bug spray, you are going to cause serious hurt. Forgetting your fertilisers, whether it's your Super Thrive, which I love to use, or your Fish Blood and Bone from Western, or whatever proprietary stuff you use, yeah, may be great for getting your Itoigawa junipers all nice and green and healthy. But you know what? A bit like repots, you can actually forget to do the fertiliser. In fact, I'm the example. I didn't fertilise my trees for years, and in fact, some of them still haven't been fertilised. So long as they get sun, water, and a nice fresh environment, they'll do fine. They may not put on the extra growth, but they'll do fine. If you forget that bug spray, you've got serious problems ahead of you. Now, before we get on to the third one, do you know what? I thought we'd have a look at some of your subscriber bonsai pictures. And also, this is going to be a new section for me. I've been getting quite good subscriber tips and hints for how they do bonsai. And I know a lot of you don't read through all the comments. So I've got 4 that I've actually picked out that I think it's probably worth sharing. So first of all, let's have a look at some of those subscriber photographs. Well, thanks ever so much for all those wonderful photographs. Again, I remind you, if you want to have your tree pictured once every couple months coming up in the bonsai retreat, then all you need to do is to send your photos to expressionsbonsai@gmail.com. But I love seeing the stuff you're doing. It keeps me humble, to be fair. And before we talk about this, which will be thing number 3, let's have a look at just a few of the tips that have been coming through on the comments of some of my videos. And the first one has come from Noah. One of the things he's brought up about is that it really is important to, before you start worrying about fronts and pots, you really do need to get the tree set up first. Get that all set up first, get it healthy, and then maybe worry about the front and indeed at the end, the pot. And I think I'll also highlight something that came from Mandre, and he is talking about Japanese maple. And I think he was looking there at the essential factors you need to look at when you are indeed root pruning your Japanese maple. And I know many people are actually quite nervous about the extent and to how far you go when you do root pruning. And I think many of you get the impression that for me, it's just a case of lop them all off, so to speak. In fact, there's a little bit more to it, but again, you'll see that in many of my videos. In fact, the one I've only just done about the linden talks about roots, quite a lot of detail. And then we had a comment from, I think it's Morning Fuel or something like that, and he stresses one of the things that a number of you actually stress when I'm making up my soil mixes. And he did say, look, if you're sifting or sieving your zeolite, things like that, be aware that those particles, if you start inhaling them, can be dangerous to your health. So it is worth always remembering, wear a safety mask. And finally, probably just a shout out to Andrea, who very recently reminded me that although I may have done well over 350 videos, a lot of you are relatively new to my channel. And I do have this habit of referring to as previously mentioned or as previously discussed when I talk about techniques or products I use. And, I apologise for that. Sometimes it's difficult to get the balance between length and overdoing a subject. But I've got a number of playlists, beginner playlists, nursery plant to whatever playlists that tell you what sort of soils I use, pruning techniques and what sort of fertilizers I use. But generally the fertilizer is a Super Thrive, which I get off Amazon, and the fertilizer and the bug spray, well, you've seen that. So again, thanks for bringing that up, and I will try my best to at least summarize the essential stuff you need to know when I'm going through my videos. And the third thing, it's something I always go on about. I always seem to forget because I do it so much. If you clip and grow, skip past, you don't need this. This hawthorn got wired up, crumbs, I think it's about 7 or 8 months ago. Again, this is a stump to bonsai series 1, this great big hawthorn. Right now, the buds are opening. We're going to see some massive expansion of tissue over the next 3 to 6 weeks. And if that wire's been on for a while, if that wire is tight, all that work could end up being for nothing. Because if you squeeze the life out of that branch, not only will it look ugly if it lives, it's also potentially going to kill the branch. And I've spent 2 years now just trying to develop a basic structure on these. They've got a lot of thickening to do. If I don't get the wire off, that could be all for nothing. And I could end up causing serious damage or harm to what will be a really nice bonsai. In fact, let's have a look at another one, again, that got wired heavily, I think, in late December 2025. That's this Japanese larch, which I spent 3 hours wiring this up, and it's part of an example I use to show why it's important to follow sometimes other people's advice, especially experts. In this case, it was Peter Chan who advised me to basically drop that branch all the way down and try and create, well, it was going to be a literati, but I've managed to grow this one down. It could be actually completely different. But look at that. And I've taken your advice. Everyone said it needs to stay in this Dawn Isaac ceramic, primitive bark, scraped, whatever. And that's exactly what's going to happen. All over this is fine 1mm wire. It's been on for 3 months. Larch are vigorous. This is healthy. I expect those thin shoots to expand by at least double the size. If I leave that wire on, it's going to absolutely seriously cause a problem with the branches themselves. given the choice, it's probably worth getting the old wire snippers to it and removing it all. I'd much prefer to remove all that wire and have to redo it again in November, December than end up having to regrow all of these wonderful branches that you see right now. And hopefully it's going to keep its shape. If it doesn't, well, I'll just redo it. And I always say you're going to be a little bit careful, because what you don't want to end up doing is inadvertently cutting through your shoots. And it looks like it's holding it. So I'm going to continue to do that. That's going to take me hours to get off properly. And I'm sure you don't want to see me doing that. And I'm also going to have to do it to this this great big old mountain larch, which I put on a rock. Again, that's inspiration from something I saw at Herons. Great video in the description, or just up there, all about it. And I'd much rather take the wire off now than risk losing those branches. So tell you what, the third thing that many people really prioritize on that they can forget is pruning branches. Do you know what? If you just let a branch grow, the tree's going to get nice and healthy. Yeah, for your refined trees, it's more of a problem. If you're developing stuff, much better to concentrate on getting the wire off than worrying about pruning branches here, there and everywhere. I've gone years without pruning stuff. I then come back and I found I've got this whole new tree to have an adventure with. So that pretty well wraps up for this little short special. I bet it isn't short, but hopefully you've got something out of that, and you've got to enjoy not only the pictures of some of your wonderful bonsai, some of your great tips, but indeed a lot of my flowering bonsai or pre-bonsai. It's been worth watching, surely. And that behind me is a Japanese larch forest that I've done some work on. I've got a great video coming up very, very soon about how you can improve your existing forests, what you need to concentrate. And indeed, Gary Brown did me a great hobbit pot. And I've got a triple trunk Zelkova from Tony of Tony's Bonsai, God rest his soul, that's already been put in it. That's probably coming up next Saturday. So all great reasons to watch. But if you're bored and you want something else to do, that's the video to watch. Otherwise, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.